Live. Now we're live.
Right on.
So let me know when to start the intro, and I shall get it done.
Right on. Yeah, so you got any special foods planned for Monday Night Football for you since it's your opening game?
No, no,
Nothing special?
no, man. I don't really. Food is just not really that my thing, especially lately.
All right. All right.
You
I'm
ready?
ready. Yep.
All right, let's do it.
Shut up and sit down.
Boom. Hello, everybody. I'm the Street Certified Dope Doctor here with you. This is the Couch Live. Actually, it's Dope and Dharma with the Couch Live edition of Dope and Dharma. I'm here with my partner, the Dharma guy, Trinity Phillips. What's up, brother?
Hey, what is up?
Good, man. Here on WOKB 1680 AM in the Central Florida area. And, of course, 100.7 FM if you local to the Central Florida area. If you're not, you're probably watching us some other way. And how might they be watching us, Trinity, or listening?
Yeah, you can watch us on right now. It's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch live under Dope and Dharma. And then if you want to check us out at any time, you can do so through any of those mediums or on any of your major podcasting platforms.
That's right. But for all the Central Floridians, we're here at WOKB with you. And, of course, as much as you and I want to talk about football today, we just can't. We got to talk about something else, Trinity. I mean, I know you and I just want to talk football. Matter of fact, instead of doing a pregame show, we just did pregame. Right? I mean, we just talked football for the last, 30 minutes when we were, getting ready for this. So we didn't, we did our usual non-prep and just talked football. So before we get into new beginnings and the reason we do the Couch Live, because the Couch Live is a show on addictions and recovery that we've done for since 1999. The Couch Live has been on the air. Thank you all for joining us all these years. And then, of course, we have other shows that we do, but we do a sports show sometimes. Every once in a while, Dope and Dharma does a sports show, and we almost wanted to do one today, but we couldn't turn that into WOKB.
No,
they would have been like, well, this is not what we asked you to do. It's not what we wanted, right? Even though I'm sure they'd like to talk about football too, though.
Oh, I'm guaranteed
I'm sure Shaw would like to talk about football.
Sure.
What show do you think is Shaw's favorite team?
Which
one? He's the Jacksonville Jaguars.
He's a Chicago boy, so I would assume.
Well, tell him thank you for Fields then. Steelers, we're gonna do with Fields what you couldn't do, and you're not gonna do as well with Caleb as you thought you were gonna do.
Not if yesterday was an indication,
apparently, but that's a great transition because we're talking about new beginnings today. New beginnings. And do you think that Chicago Bears have a new beginning with Caleb? And do you think the Pittsburgh Steelers have a new beginning with Justin Fields or Russell Wilson? And, I prefer Fields. But either one, you think we have a new beginning?
Well, they're all new beginnings. Whether they're worth it or not, who knows? To be determined.
Right. So why are we talking about it today? You know why, people? Because, sometimes you just got to get off the road you're on. That's why I wanted to talk about this today, because sometimes you're on a certain path and you're just so used to being on it and you're just so accustomed to what comes with it that no matter how bad it may be for you, you just stay on it, for whatever reason. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons, and we're going to talk about some of those reasons today, Trinity. I would like you, the Dharma guy, to share with us some of the reasons that people stay on the path that they're on, even though it's not working for them, Trinity, even though like they're coming up against some sort of resistance or it's not getting them the fruits that they're looking for. They stay on it,
Sure.
So I want to hear some of those reasons that you think people have for staying on paths that appear to just be going nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, the first things that come to my mind are obviously denial, right? Like refusing to believe or accept the fact that it's not working for you.
It's not working. Yeah.
The other one I think that comes to mind is fear, right? Fear of the unknown,
right?
Fear of making any actual changes.
Right.
And then the other big one I would think of, probably since we're doing things in threes, would probably be the oh my god, My brain just farted there. I saw Marissa's comment and I
Yeah.
adjusted.
What's up, Marissa?
Hey,
In New
Marissa.
York?
Complacency. There we go. Just being comfortable, right? So,
Yeah.
adapting to a situation, and then you kind of become adapted where it becomes your new normal. I think we're all guilty of that to some degree.
So let me ask you a little bit about that. Being comfortable,
Sure.
being uncomfortable. Why is it so many people just comfortable staying uncomfortable, Trinity?
Well, what is it? Water seeks to level itself, I guess, right? So we're very similar in that sense.
Mhm.
We're creatures of laziness, so we're always going to try to find the least effort way to get through something. That's kind of how we're wired.
Right.
And when it's good, it's great, but when it's not, it really is to our detriment. And so I think that, for instance, like when I was doing my health and fitness stuff, um, people would look at somebody who is morbidly obese and just really not doing well. And a lot of people would be like, well, man, I would never, be able to do that. Well,
Right.
they don't realize is that person didn't go to bed at night, in a healthy body and wake up the
Mm.
next, like it was a gradual thing. So like I had clients who adjusted their life as their like, because you don't have a choice, right? Like you can't just not adjust. You have to make it through the day.
Well,
So
some people it looks like they don't adjust, Trinity. So I don't know if I can buy into that
what
because
I'm
some
getting
people look to be stagnant all the
Well,
time.
what I'm getting to that one is like, if you're gaining weight, right, and your clothes don't fit,
Oh, you
y-
adjust to the
y-
negative
you're
part.
gonna have to buy new
Yeah,
clothes. Like you
you're
can't just
right.
go out naked. Like you're gonna
You're
adjust.
right. Right.
So you're gonna keep making these little adjustments, and then
Right.
next thing you know, you look back years and years later, and you're putting your shoes on with a special apparatus because you can't bend down to do it anymore. Like you didn't go to bed Monday, wake up Tuesday, can't put your shoes on.
Right.
Like that's not
Right.
how that happened. You
Right.
made these little tiny adjustments to get through the day until years later you've basically accustomed yourself to a really bad life.
So much like a person last week may have been sleeping in a very comfortable bed with his wife, and then because of the alcohol or something similar, now he's sleeping on his boy's couch, and,
Yeah,
and spending time differently. You
yeah,
adjust,
yeah. I
right?
think that's what we do is adjust. Like
Right.
because the alternative is not going forward, right? And that's a whole different
Right.
show.
Right.
So as humans, we're going to, do what we got to do to make it through the day.
Right.
So if that means that I have to adjust now to this new negative,
Right.
yeah, it's not good for me. Yeah, I don't like it, but what are you going to do? So you kind of get by,
Yeah.
and then that becomes your new normal. And then next thing you know, you've adjusted to things that you never thought in a million years.
Right.
Like, come on, man, you've been doing this way longer than I have, but how I know myself.
Mm.
How many times I heard people saying that they once told themselves they would never use needles ever,
Right.
and they're sitting here talking to me because they've been using needles. So it's like we make adjustments, man, and
Right.
it's never it's never 0 to 60. It
Right.
just doesn't work that way. It's 0 to like 5, and then 5 to 10, and then 10 to
Right.
12. You make it. The next thing you know, you make it to 60 eventually.
And
It's
and to put it in full perspective for those of you out there that don't use or not the actual offender, some of you have made the same adjustments. Like you said, you would never live with someone who behaved a certain type of way, and now you do. You would never tolerate someone who treated you a certain type of way, and now you do.
yeah,
So it happens all the way around. It doesn't just
yeah,
happen to the person that has the specific issue. It like bleeds into the entire environment that they're in. So then
mhm,
everybody becomes infected with that same sickness.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that's how people adjust to things that aren't good for them. I think
Right.
it's a gradual thing, and it sneaks up on you because you make excuses, right?
Right.
You
Right.
um, the person who's being hurt. Oh well, they
Right.
didn't mean that, or they're struggling with something. That's not how they
Mm,
normally act. That's
mm,
it's not who they are. I'm not going to judge them for this one thing. They've done all these other great. They make excuses, and next thing you know, you're putting up with behavior that you never thought in a million years you would deem
right.
acceptable.
Right. Yeah, like Marissa from New York just put on Facebook Live codependency. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is
Yeah.
part of it, right? It's just that we
Mhm.
become codependent with each other. I mean, even as friends, you get codependent with your friends, but they're your friends. Like you feel differently within that scenario. But when you're in a more intimate relationship, you would hope that you would be a little bit more protective of who you're spending that much time with or dedicating the
Sure.
rest of your life with. But they become your drug. They become your using. And you can't put them down. You know, you walk
Sure.
away, you say you're going to stay walking away, but then they call you on that right day, you know,
Yeah.
or they reach out on that right day. And if you don't heal your own self, you just keep getting right back into it. And yeah, so this is about new beginnings because it's possible. And I think that a lot of times people stay in really bad situations, Trinity, because they think it's impossible to get out of it, you know, for whatever
Yeah.
reason. You know,
Well, that's the fear that I was talking
right,
about.
right, right. And unfortunately, there's people out there that believe that's a reality. It may sound like a fear, but it's a reality. You know, whether it be a financial, it appears to be a financial reality, or appears to be, you know, something else. Um,
Cheaper to keep her.
it's yeah, or him. You know,
Didn't rhyme though.
it really doesn't. We got to
No.
we got to figure that one out. Yeah, like happy wife, happy life. I've always been trying to figure out one for happy husband. You know, or
Happy spouse, happy house.
man. Oh, okay. I guess I can go with that. All right. I was thinking more like happy man, then you can, you know what I mean? Because I like to say no a lot, you know what I mean? So
Right.
it's like if I'm happy, then you can. I mean,
Sure.
just, you know, learn how to make me smile more. Just kidding.
Right.
You know, she'll come in here and throw a shoe at me or something if I keep going. It's like,
But that's the fear that I was talking about. Like between the three was delusion, fear, and
Right.
complacency, I guess. But the
Yeah.
fear is it's a real thing, man. Like, you know, it's from the outside looking in, obviously everything always sounds so simple.
Right.
Oh, just do this, you know. But when you're in it, sometimes that fear
Mhm.
is contrived for sure, but other
Right.
times it's very real, right? Like if somebody is in the same in an unhappy situation,
Right.
and let's say they are broke, you
Right.
know, and it's a very real thing that you can't afford to
Right.
walk away at the moment. Like I completely understand that.
Yeah.
It's easy for me on the outside looking in. I'm not gonna have to wake up in a situation where I don't have a place to lay my head tomorrow.
Right.
So I can tell you all day long, well, it's not that hard. You know, you got to do what's good for you. But the person who's hearing it might be like, yeah, well, you know, I want food in my belly and I want a house to sleep in tonight. So I
Right.
guess I'm going to deal with what I got to deal with. And so the fear of the unknown, the fear of making the changes, the fear of what if, what could,
Yeah.
and even that, I think that's something everybody has to really kind of look inward to figure out what exactly are you willing to put up with and what you're not.
Yeah. Fear can paralyze you.
Yeah.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, when you're afraid of something, sometimes you just do no movement until
Yeah.
it's years later. And then it's like, well, now how can I start over? I mean, I should have done it back then. If I was going to start over, I should have done it then. Now,
Yeah.
you know what tends to happen, Trinity, is that people, the other person tends to go build their own life, you know, and when they build their own life, they don't need you as much, but they're just so accustomed to you just being a screw up, for lack of a better word, that they just tolerate you. Or
Yeah.
but they built a life without you. You know, they have their own friend group, they have their own social scenarios going on. They don't require you for all the same things they used to require you. They've already now, you know, put you so down on the pedestal that they don't need anything or think anything of you. You're just part of the furniture. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But they stay in the situation anyway. And for the user, I mean, it's like sometimes you just don't even know that there is another. Like, am I going to enjoy it? Why, you know, I do this because I like to do. This is who I am. You become you take ownership of the illness to the point where you say,
Yeah.
this is what
Yeah.
I do. This is who I am. I drink. I get high. That's what I like to do. And you know, the day that I don't like it anymore, somebody please shoot me because I don't want to live any other way. I mean, that there is something to be said for that kind of mentality, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, we oftentimes forget that like it's all learned behavior, right? Like
Right.
you didn't come out at 2 years old acting that way. Like you
Right.
learned to do that, you know, either through defensive, like, you know, necessity or just whatever. You learn that behavior and you learned it, you can unlearn it.
Hmm.
But too many times, yes, I think we wrap ourselves around certain behaviors that we enjoy and we
Right.
claim that that's just who we are, even though that's really not who you
Right.
are.
Right. It's almost like, you know, like taking it back to and Marissa, I saw your little comment right there. People may not know that Marissa's in a wheelchair. So when I said that we're paralyzed about something else, she had a little comment. What'd she say right there, Trinity?
She said, "Yep, emotions and mentalities can paralyze you more than anything physically.
That's true statement. That's a very true statement.
Paralysis by analysis."
That's right. So you know, one of the issues with people getting stuck in a certain situation and feeling like they can't, you know, change paths, besides not really wanting to change paths, is, you know, it becomes internally, like who you are. So we were talking football earlier, right? And when you watch football, you tend to watch people do interviews, right? And sometimes the interview, however you watch that interview, that can make you either like a player or dislike a player. I'm going to say a lot of times, right? I mean, you
Sure.
and I, we like some of the same players, and then there's certain players that we have issue with based on interviewing skills, based on the way their personality doesn't come across or does come across, unfortunately, too much
Cam Newton.
on an interview. Yeah. And so it's almost the same thing. Like when you start using at a very young age, it already starts changing who you are. Like I've said many times, I don't know who I would have been if I wouldn't have made some of the choices that I made so early on in my life. I just don't even know what kind of person I would have been. I just don't. My best way of kind of even looking at that, Trinity, to be honest with you, is looking at my daughters and kind of like looking at their skill sets and kind of looking at the way they manage the world and I think to myself, is that how I would have been minus the traumatic stuff or minus some of these decisions that I made? Is that my brain without any influence of marijuana, cocaine, violence, criminality? Is that where my brain would have been? Like that. I think of things like that. Do you ever ponder stuff like that? I mean, you have children. I mean, do you ever ponder that? Because you know why you are the way you are. I mean, it's no
Sure.
secret. Your dad left at a very young age, and so that obviously affects you. I mean, anyone can think, oh, that had not, that didn't change me. I am who I am. No, that affects you. It traumatizes you, and however you respond to that that traumatic event, that becomes who you are. So do you ever look at your kids and say, man, what could have been different for me? Should I have had the fatherly love that I know you give your kids? I've seen you do fatherly stuff to your kids that I know you didn't learn from your father. So you're
Yeah.
right. I mean, your dad wasn't even around.
Well, he was. He was around long enough to do damage.
Okay. All right. That's
Yeah.
fair.
No, I mean all the time. That's actually a huge motivating factor for me. Actually, is I don't want them, like, I want to emphasize or celebrate or encourage, like, the innocence and the love
Right.
and the genuineness that my children still have.
Mm,
I lost that innocence way before I was either one of their ages.
right.
And yeah, I mean, I've seen how it's impacted me in my life. In certain instances, I'm extremely grateful.
Right.
I think there's certain survival things that I've picked up over the years that have
Right.
been fantastic at survival. Not so good at building connection and relationships with people. It's definitely held me back in many, many areas.
Right.
And the older I get, the more I realize that. And then that's kind of where I start to look back and be like, dang, man, like, had I had some of these skills that I've
Right.
developed over the years earlier on, had they not been like robbed from me,
Mm,
who would I have been and how would I have
mm,
turned out? Because I look at my kids and they're just like, man, I complain about them all. They're my kids. They're annoying sometimes, but at
yeah.
the end of the day, they're good kids though.
Yeah.
And I look at like my son, man. My son, out of all the kids, my son is the sweetest, nicest kid. Like, he's the most loving, most
He's so
compassionate,
loving.
very, like, extremely. He is literally, out of all the kids, like, my daughters, like, there's only two of them in the house now,
Yeah.
but like my daughter, if she comes out in the living room, even since she was like a little kid,
Yeah.
if I were to give her a cookie, the first thing she does is take the cookie, eat it, and go about her day. Whereas my son, even since he was little, I would give him a cookie and he would immediately ask if he can get one for his sisters and, as everybody else in the house. That's just who he is. He's just been a very thoughtful, loving kid his whole life. Now, but because of that, that also makes him more volatile, right? Like, when he does get hurt, then he lashes out. Like, you can see the hurt and the pain coming out, in a very volatile way.
Mhm.
But yeah, like, I want to encourage that lovingness, so I'm trying to teach him how to harness that and how to kind
Mhm.
of, like, keep with it. But like, I lost that genuineness when I was a kid, like
Right.
a long time ago.
Right.
Like, I grew up just angry.
Well, that's an example of changing paths a little bit. That's an
Yeah,
example of new beginnings, because even though it may not be a new beginning in your own personal life as far as from childhood upward, you're changing the future. You're
sure.
changing the way this bloodline was in some
Trying.
way determined to go. It's like,
Mhm.
the deck was stacked against you. And there's a lot of people out there that can relate to that. Matter of fact, that may use that as an excuse to be a poor parent, or use
Sure.
that an excuse to be a certain type of way, saying, well, that's just, it's a family tradition. You know what I mean? This is,
Sure.
that's the way that's the way we are. Like they would use their last name with that. That's just
Sure.
the blankety blank way. You know what I mean? Whereas you, on the other hand, it's improved your parental skills, and we've made note on this program that there's someone out there today that went to their kid's baseball game because their father never went to their
Sure.
baseball game.
Well, it's
There's
because of or in spite of.
exactly
Yeah.
exactly and then there's some of you that don't go, exactly, because you don't even know how to be there,
Yeah.
because you think, I don't need to be there. I didn't have that for me. You don't need that. He's
Yeah.
good.
Well, I mean, so as far as new beginnings,
Yeah.
thankfully, I was wise enough
Mhm.
back when I was 28, when I first found out I was going to have my first child. Um, I was wise
Mhm.
enough then to realize that, like,
Right.
look, I need to make some changes. Like, I need to,
Mhm.
I was happy with who I was.
Mhm.
But I was able to do that at 28 because I was selfish. I didn't have
Right.
kids. I didn't have a
Right.
wife or anything. So I was able to be self-centered and kind of just me and
Mhm.
aggressive and mean, whatever. It worked, right? I was successful.
Yeah.
But the second I found out that I was having a child and it was going to be a daughter, I immediately knew that little girl needs to hear things like "I love you," "I'm proud of you," and those were like dirt. Oh God, I cannot express how dirty and just gross it made me feel to say things like "I love you." Like, it was just weird.
Mm.
But I knew that my daughter is going to need that as a father. So I could have said, well, that's just not who I am. That's not how I
Right.
was raised, or
Right.
I got over it. She'll get over. Instead, I was like, no, that's what she needs. So I'm going to start implementing that now. So I trained myself to get used to it. Now I can say it all the time. Doesn't bother me at all.
Right.
I definitely was able to grow and adapt. And the reason why I did that new beginning is because I wanted my kids to have a new beginning. I didn't want them to start with the same cloud that I had.
Right.
But
Right.
I mean, it wasn't easy.
Well, no, and does it somehow, I don't know, resolve something within you though, by going through that, by reliving it differently, or by being on the other side of that and providing differently? Does that somehow heal some of the crap that you endured?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. Um, I don't know. There was a lot of healing that took place just on my own throughout the years.
Right.
Um, so
Yeah,
I
the kids
guess
bring a different level of healing, man.
they do.
Because I,
Um,
I know it did with me, but I'm gonna let you answer that one first, and then
yeah. Um, my kids definitely bring out a different emotion in me that I've never experienced before
right,
them.
right,
I've always been a genuine person. I've always cared about people,
right.
but there was arm's length kind of caring,
Yeah.
right? Like, there wasn't a vulnerability there.
Mhm.
But they just completely wiped that away. Like, I turned into such a baby when it comes to my kids, dude. Like,
Right.
I just love my kids, man. And they're the only humans on earth that, like, I think about when I'm not around them, kind of a thing. They're just, and so, yeah, that definitely helped grow. But I think being open to that has helped it grow, right? Because I could have very easily ignored it or
Yeah.
fought it, but I embraced it. Um, but watching them definitely makes me kind of rethink things. It motivates me more to kind of be there for them, because of their innocence, because of where they're
Right.
at. That's why I'm able to do the uncomfortable things. Like, if I did something that I felt justified in, for instance,
Right.
um, but I know I kind of maybe went about it a little bit too aggressively or whatever, I will immediately apologize, or own it,
Mm.
that kind of stuff. It's because of that. Those are the kinds of things that make me, like,
You didn't
have no.
apologize before.
I'm sorry.
You didn't apologize before.
I did, unless I thought I was right. If I thought I was right and
I
justified,
always thought I was right.
I mean, if I thought I was justified
Right.
logically, then I didn't really care how I came off. I didn't care how it made you feel. Hey, that's on
Right.
you. What I
Yeah.
say is what I say. How you take it's how you take it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when my kids, just like the other day, like,
Right.
just the other morning, I was taking my daughter to school, and her and I were having a conversation. The conversation was not like, it just turned into like a lecture, I think. As I
Mm.
was talking to her, I felt it the moment it shifted from conversation to lecture. And I could tell that I was being a little overzealous. Maybe it was just tired. I don't know what it was. I could tell that it didn't come off the way I wanted it to. So when she got out of the car, or whatever, I immediately texted her. I was like, "Look, baby, I'm
Right.
sorry. I apologize if it came off aggressive or whatever." Blah blah blah.
Right.
I owned it and apologized to her. And
Mm.
my main reason why is because I want her to know that, look, man, that's just not the relationship that we need to have, basically.
So that's pretty insightful of you. See, there's a couple words you use there, right there. Vulnerability, being
Mhm.
one of them, and the other one, well, the other one you didn't say, but I thought about it, was honesty.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, first of all, as much as I heal, as much as I worked on healing prior to children, I feel like children took it to another level. Daughters, especially.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would have been like if I would have had boys. I think I'm pretty grateful that I did not have the son that I wanted to have,
Yes.
because it would have probably been
I
the most,
absolutely treat them differently, but
yeah, it would have
out of
been.
love, but I definitely treat them differently.
I just don't think I would have changed as much with a boy. I think I would have
Yeah.
stayed kind of rough and gruff. Whereas with a with the daughters, it softened me.
Mhm.
Put it this way: I think we all have a softness to us. I think I've said this many times before. We all have a hardness to us, and we all have a softness to us. No matter what you are what you are. You know, you can try to be as hard as you want to be, but if you're soft, you're soft. And if you try to be, if you're hard, you can try to be soft. But if you try to be soft, you're just hard, man. That's just who you are. Man. You need to get some therapy to get softer. But in my personal case, it brought a level of vulnerability that I wasn't expecting, that a level of vulnerability to be open to
Yeah.
being vulnerable, like to be at a level of honesty. Because I think from 4 years old I was just a hustler. To be honest, I mean I can go back even before my memories start, and I was always in a hustle, you know. 4 years old, 5 years old. I could think of all the different hustles that I did, starting from stealing now and later's to then selling them. You know, what little. I mean, I ditched kindergarten, bro. Who does that? Who ditches kindergarten? You know what I mean? One of my mother's favorite stories is I came home with, walking with a girl hand in hand from kindergarten because we just left out the wrong door, just decided not to go back to school that day. And, little things like that. It's like, I was always like making excuses. I was always lying. I was always hustling. And when I had daughters, and as much as I'd like to say when I met Dana, that changed, I was still holding a little back. But once I had daughters, I was like, there's no holding back here at all,
Yeah.
because I can hear, again, I hear me in them. I see me in them. And it was like, ooh, wow. When I said that, this is where I was coming from. When I thought that, this is where I was coming from. And so I just wanted to hear it different. I wanted to react to it different, or respond. Let me say that. Let me respond to it differently. Because as good of a parents as I have, it's still a different generation of a world anyway.
Yeah.
So with every new generation, there comes a different response to that same stimuli. You can't always respond the way the past generations responded because it's a different world. And so I listened differently. I explained things differently. I was just different in my approach. I mean, my daughter just said the other day, she goes, do you remember how you used to say that, that you were Santa Claus just because later on in life you didn't want us to say that you lied to us? Yeah. But I would say it as a joke, like, yeah, there's no Santa Claus like that. Like, I was telling the truth. By the way, spoiler alert, if you're out there and you still believe in Santa, I apologize for this.
You heard it here first.
Maybe I should have said, close your kids' ears before I go on. Oh, right now, there's a parent right now going, now, Louis, that was just wrong. Anyway, I should have used that. Now I can't even say any of the bunnies or the tooth fairies, whatever. What I'm saying is I told the truth. No matter even if I did it with humor or if I did it a different way, I just felt like I had to just be as open and honest as possible. And there was something very cathartic happen in that process. What happened was I discovered levels of vulnerability within me that were kind of interesting, to the point where, I don't know, it was a sense of calm came over me. Trinity, I didn't know I suffered anxiety for as many years as I did until I no longer had it. And although I could identify with someone's anxiety, when I start talking about it or thinking about it, I'm going like, wait a minute, I don't even have that anymore.
Right.
Or other things that were harmful, right? I didn't even know I was away from them until I look back and go like, wait a minute, I don't no longer tap my leg the way I always did. I no longer have to be fidgety like I was. I never walk around. I never have to just go anymore. I'm actually okay by myself now. How is that okay? I always had to be in a crowd of doing something and being the next thing. And I just thought that was part of who I am. And I know there's people out there that can relate with that. You're always on the go. You're always doing something. I had no idea that a lot of that was just the busyness that was between the ears that was going on because I didn't even know how to identify it. As a matter of fact, if you'd have asked me about emotions, I remember just thinking, what emotion? Happy, mad. That's it. Those are the two that I have. I'm either excited or I'm angry. I don't know all those other little. You ever see that little thing with all the faces? I don't even know what some of those are to be. Look, I'm an educated man. I still don't know what bewildered is really. I mean, I may fake an answer to you, but I don't know. And I definitely don't know how to draw bewildered.
No.
I mean, there's like 30 little emojis on that chart, and I just know happy and mad. I might understand the flirtatious one. That one I think I get. But so there's little tiny things that by re-experiencing life with children and with someone that you really care about and just being open and vulnerable to that, it just automatically started opening up another path that I'm so grateful that I took. Because even though I'd already started changing, I don't think I would have stayed on this path had I, number one, not met Dana, and then had I not had children with Dana the way we had children. You know what I mean? I would have easily jumped onto the other path because there's issues in life. You don't always get along. You're going to argue. You're going to fight. And I remember in those early days when that would happen, I just wanted to bang, bang, bang the world, man. It was like, and then the more you don't do it, the more you're just like, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? With who? To who? If the same is the same is the same. And if you talk to enough people, you'll realize that we all got the same issues. We all got the same conversations. You know, we just think that someone else is not having them. No, we're all having the same conversations. We just all respond to them differently. You know what I mean? And sometimes we respond to them exactly the same. And it's your choice. What do you want to do with this? This life is really short, man. I mean, today, look, what we see today. Today we lost James Earl Jones, right? So, the beef. And so life is short. And when you see that he was 93 years old, I'm thinking, wow.
Wow, he's 93.
He was 93. And then I think, oh, yeah, well, my dad's 84. My dad's 84 years old. Oh, wait, I'm 54. Oh, my God. Trinity, tell me if I'm wrong about this, but do you not sometimes think like the little kid that's in you and be like, how the hell can I be this old? Because I could still think like the little kid. So how is it that does that mean that my father sometimes thinks like a little kid? Because when I look at him, I'm thinking, ain't no way you think like a little kid, brother. You know, I mean, you were born old. You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah,
but it is what that is. I mean, it's like we are forever young, and we've always been old. Like all our lives, we have thought we're old. Right? No matter what. You were 2 years old, you said, I'm 2.5, right? You're trying to tell somebody that you're a half year older than you are.
Yeah.
But you've always been kind of young and you've always been kind of old. And the key is kind of finding that balance within you to just appreciate what's in front of you, but to know that, man, I can reinvent myself any day. If I really wanted to reinvent myself, I could. But if I don't heal, Trinity, I just take the same person with me. I mean, I did that when I moved to LA. When I moved to LA, I was trying to reinvent myself, but I brought some of my boys with me and I just started acting the same way. And next thing you know, I mean, the same Louis that was in El Paso was in LA.
Well, that's where my first one, like the first one I said was delusion. I think that's an important one, right? Because I mean, how many, like there was I don't remember I don't remember the exact context, but it was a couple of years ago now. I posted something on my social media. It was something about letting go.
Yeah.
I don't remember the details. It was basically like letting go. And somebody commented and said only if it was only that easy. And then I was like, wow, like you really convince yourself that carrying all that stuff and dealing with it every day, day in and day out is actually easier than letting it go. And that's the thing is one of my favorite phrases that is universal apparently, no matter which group you're going into. How's that working for you? Right, like because we convince ourselves that it's working, right? We come up with all this elaborate narrative and all these justifications and why we're doing this and everything else. Oh, how's it working? Well, it stumps so many people because oftentimes when you really do sit back and objectively look at what's going on, it's not really working for you. It's you're struggling. It's not working. So maybe you want to rethink that a little bit.
There was a guy I remember. Never forget his name, Dr. Pete Budkins, the guy that I bought Quest Counseling from back in the day. He was back in school to get his doctorate. And I remember kind of being like, ain't you kind of old to be getting a doctorate? So I asked him, because I had no filter back then. You think I don't have a filter now? You should have met me younger. I really had no filter.
I hear that.
And so I asked him about that, like how at 40-something years old he was going back and get his doctorate. And he was like, well, I'm going to do time anyway. Like time is going to pass anyway. So who cares how long it takes? And that always stuck with me, man, because it was like, man, I always lived to die back then. Even at that age, as healthy as I felt like I was still just living to expire. I was just, always thinking about the negative, the end, like that old Jim Morrison thing. This is the end. And my friend, I mean, I really related to Jim Morrison in all those early years when I would hear that music, because I always felt like that. I always felt like I was predestined to die young and horrifically. And when he said that, it was like, but what if you don't?
Yeah.
Well, then no matter how long something takes, so what? Just even if you just take one little step to the left off the path that you're on, and just every year you just take one more step to the left from the path you're on, do you know that in a decade you'd be on a completely different path in 10 years? With just one step a year. So it doesn't take that much movement in today to get somewhere different. But I think that's what makes it feel so monumental, Trinity, is because when you think about change, you think about, how am I going to go from smoking pot every day to just not smoking at all? Or how am I going to go from, drinking with my boys on the weekends to just not even hanging out with them? Like you think in these extremes, because we always talk in extremes. You gotta stop now. You gotta quit. You gotta do it. But if you're not accepting the quit word, if you're not accepting the fact that you need to go to some sort of treatment and discontinue it completely, well, then how about proving yourself right? Because I know you've been thinking, I just need to cut down. Well, then make those real attempts and at least stick to that attempt to the degree where if it doesn't work, then you absolutely know that slowing down is not for you, because the illness or the sickness is inside you and therefore will not allow you to do so. But at least make the movement, instead of you do it for a couple days, you go back to the way it was, so you don't try again until the next crisis. Because that's kind of the way we do what we do, right? Like your bouts of recovery kind of mimic your arrests. You know what I mean? Get arrested, let's get sober again. You get kicked out, let's get sober again. You know what I mean? It's like
that person that doesn't pray until they're in a crisis.
Right.
Like, I swear I'll never do this again if you just do this. 2 weeks later, to do the exact same thing.
I prayed every time I threw up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when I did it.
But that's literally how I found spirituality, though.
Okay.
Like, I was in a really rough spot in my life, and it was just like, I just didn't like where I was at. And when I first, it was, I was not only an atheist, but I was anti-theist. So I was actively.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I was
words again, Trinity.
I was actively against religion. So it wasn't one of those things where I'm a non-believer. Who cares? Right. No. I was actively like against religion. Like I thought it was a terrible thing. And so when somebody brought up spirituality, I was like, whatever. It never really came into my orbit.
Right.
Until I had my moment when I looked around, I was like, dude, I gotta have something better. Like, this sucks, man. And then when I stumbled across Buddhism as a spiritual belief, I thought it was BS. Like, I was like, this is stupid. It's like, but I'm so hard-headed, I can't tell you something doesn't work if I didn't try it. Because then I would know in my head I didn't try it. And so anybody that would say, well, you didn't try, like, I would know they got me on that one. Right. So I'm so hard-headed that I was like, no, I'm gonna prove it wrong. I'm gonna go ahead and commit to it, and I'm gonna go through the actions. I'm gonna fully do this,
right? Just
so I can turn around and prove to y'all it doesn't work,
right? And
so I started to do it. I was like, this is stupid. This doesn't work. And
this
at first,
is an experiment.
Yeah, and at first I didn't agree with like half the stuff. I was like, but whatever, man. Let me go ahead and do the stupid thing so I can tell people I did it.
Right. Fake it till you make it, Trinity.
Yeah, and then the weirdest thing is it started to work. Like, I still believed some of the thoughts that I believed, but they didn't matter anymore, if that makes sense. Like, people would irritate me and frustrate me, and I didn't like certain situations. And so when I started, implementing this philosophical change, I still didn't like those people. I still thought that they were wrong or whatever, but I was okay with it. Like I was at peace with it. It didn't really affect me anymore. And that's how it started. And I was like, well, so I look back and it was like a couple months into it. I'm like, something's happening here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going through these stupid motions that I don't agree with, but it's kind of working. Like I'm not as frustrated or as upset anymore. Like I still think logically about those that are the same, but the internal piece is different than it was. And so then I dove deeper into it, and then some of the other things like the compassion started to make more sense. After I was kind of like knee deep in it. But yeah, that's literally how I found it. I was too stubborn to say it didn't work without trying it, so I was going to prove it wrong, and well, I was wrong. It's the reason why it's been around for thousands of years. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think faith is that way. I think faith is one of those things that that everyone should challenge.
Sure.
It's not going to hurt you to challenge it because faith gets it. And all the main players of whatever faith you're in or whatever belief you're in or whatever philosophical path you're on, the leadership within that or the people that have been in it, they'll get it. They'll understand your challenge because they probably challenged it themselves, which is probably why they're major players in that belief system in the first place. Because sometimes it takes the biggest violators to become the biggest proponents of it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think sometimes that's hard for some of us to accept. I mean, you and I, we share a friend that was famously destructive, and now he travels the world preaching. And some people would look at that, especially early on, and be like, man, come on, man. Seriously, I know you, dog. I know who you are, right?
Sure.
But do you? I mean, you know who he was.
Yeah.
I mean, you know who he was, and I'm going to say pretending to be, because the you of birth is not the same way that everybody knows you. Right. I mean, just think about the you of birth, Trinity, the me at birth. There is no way the me at birth could do the things that I did. Things had to occur.
Yeah.
Things had to happen for us to be okay with some of those scenarios. And I know this because when you see some of those things happen to other people and the way they respond to that, I'm thinking, man, why didn't I respond like that? I mean, I was younger than that and I was okay with that. Like, it's not like there's a screw loose. It's not like there's something missing. It's called, that's your response to the traumatic event. Right? I'm conditioned a certain way. You're conditioned a certain way. And when you get conditioned a certain way, it's for the lifestyle that you have to survive, because at the end of the day, we are all survivalists. That is what is innate in all of us. We are all gonna survive no matter what. Look, you look around you, anybody that's walking around living, they've survived a lot of tragedy. Because there's death all around you as a child. I mean, if you don't believe me, baby-proof a house, and you'll see, right? I looked at a baby-proof house, and I said, well, that wasn't like that when I was a kid. I mean, you'd fall on tile, okay? You know what I mean? Nobody baby-proofed
coffee
houses
tables
when we were children.
How many people have scars from coffee table?
I do. I have a scar from coffee table because my brother put me into it. But the world wasn't baby-proofed, and little by little, we're baby-proofing more and more and more. And like this, not to take it to that kind of philosophical way. It's just to say that it's constantly moving in the direction where it needs to be for the next generation. That's all. And for the you of the next generation. I'm going to give an example, Trinity. When you watch your mom with your children, you know dang well that is not the mom that raised you.
I get in trouble for pointing that out all the time.
That is not the same mom.
No. I tell my kids all the time, that is not the mom that I have. You have a grandma.
No.
Not even close.
No. And a matter of fact, fellas and felines out there, children, if you are the same grandparent that you were as a parent, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, you didn't evolve at all, man.
What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Because that is not normal. The more normal thing is It's like the parent looks at the grandparent and says, "Oh no, if I would have done that, really? You're gonna get away with it? You're gonna let them get away with that? That's okay with you now, all of a sudden?" And so here I'm now in that situation, and I'm going, wow, I just became a grandfather. As grown as I feel, as old as I feel, as evolved as I may feel, there is a whole next level of evolution I am embarking upon that I have no clue what's ahead, nor am I willing or trying to control it. Because what I know is the things that I try to hold on to and control, I screw up, right? I'm not really good at that stuff. But when I let go, like you said, and I just kind of like keep walking down that path, woo. I'm always, when I get on the other side, I'm always like, oh yeah, this is really what I wanted. But I didn't know how to say it then, because I didn't know this is what I wanted. I didn't know it was gonna feel this good. I thought it was gonna feel better if I had this. It always feels so good when you let go and just walk that path. And so, whatever you're experiencing, we got to start closing up. So whatever you're experiencing out there, whatever you're going through, it doesn't and will not stay the way it is unless you absolutely make it stay the way it is. Because even if it's bad, it will get worse, because it's never going to stay the way it is. It will evolve into a worsened position. Like what Trinity likes to say when we're talking football. We talked about the Dallas game last night, and I asked him, about, and I told him that the Browns just did not look good. And he goes, well, the Browns are exactly who the Browns have always been. And the Cowboys will be who I know them to always be. And I'm thinking, people are like that. If someone is hurting you right now, if someone is not doing good by you right now, they've already shown you who they are. That's not changing.
Somebody tells you who they are, believe them.
And guess what? You're showing yourself who you are. You're a person that feels that you deserve that kind of pain, that you deserve that kind of treatment, and that you should stay in this negative situation. And that's the kind of thing that I'm hoping to inspire you to get out of and make a change and get on a different path. Trinity, can you give us some closing thoughts, please?
Yeah, it's never too late, man. Right? Like, we could sit back and dream about what could be, what could happen, what could this, but it can be now. Like, it doesn't have to be. There's no, why not? Right? Like, we come up with all these excuses, but what if you're wrong? What if there is a better way out there? What if it's not that hard? What if it does succeed? Why not?
Why not you? Why not now? And with that, we're going to send it back to Shaw at WOKB Studios, 1680 on the AM, 100.7 FM. And Trinity, what is all the social media? Excuse me. They can follow it, listen to it later. Look at that. It had to come up, Trinity. It had to come up.
You can always check us out on any of the social medias under Dope and Dharma, or any of your major podcasting platforms. Also under Dope and Dharma.
And with that, we'll see you next time, people. Adios, amigos. It's time for a taco. Goodbye.